Well, it certainly has been a cold start to the work week, and we've had this freezing fog that started to clear out a little bit, but it's already beginning to set back up across Central Oregon. Hey, everyone. Good evening. I'm Darrell Winninger, Chief Meteorologist at Central Oregon Daily News, and our weather pattern is going to stay in this funk where we have overnight freezing fog. It's going to be lifting up and dissipating through the day, but the good news is our inversion is weakening during the next couple of days, which means PM clearing starts earlier and achieves more through the afternoon, getting into the evening before the sun sets once again. But tonight, more freezing fog is expected. Some flurries are in the forecast around this fog, and we are looking at another round of slick conditions to start the day. So let's jump into your most reliable forecast. Take a look at what's been happening through the last couple of days, what's going to happen through the next few days, and how these changes really impact us right here in Central Oregon. And we're about to do a deep dive into your most reliable forecast, starting with what it looks like right now from the Cascades all the way through the high desert to the Prineville Reservoir and Pine Mountain. We have a temperature inversion, which means temperatures are warmer overhead and cooler at the surface. And I'll explain this a little bit more, but this temperature inversion is also setting us up for some freezing fog. And we can even see that fog, those lowering clouds in the lower elevations from Lake Billy, Chinook to Bend. And when we go ahead and just focus on that Tumalo Bachelor camera overlooking Tumalo Mountain, Bend on the other side, you can see the deck of fogs, that low-level cloud cover in the lowest elevations going all the way through this camera almost, and you can actually see where it ends as elevations start to pick back up on the right. And so this fog is what has been bothering us, what has been overhead, what has been clearing out each afternoon through this weekend and even today. Today was no exception. In fact, when we go ahead and look at visible satellite imagery, now this stops right at 4 p.m., right as we stop being able to use the visible satellite imagery, but you can see where that fog started to break down, where it started to collapse in on itself. It's dissipating, but tonight it's already starting to spread back out. And so that's something that we don't typically get to see too often here in Central Oregon on the satellite imagery, but it's neat, but it also helps paint a picture of what's happening. This graphic will too. There is an inversion fog cycle that's going on. Now, inversion fog basically is what it sounds like. There's a temperature inversion, and typically as you go up with height, increase in height, the air gets cooler. When the air gets warmer with height, that's what we call a temperature inversion, just because it's out of the normal. And with this specific temperature inversion, we have much colder air down at the surface. Anywhere you get up in higher elevations, it feels better, not just because of that sunshine, but you actually have warmer air up there. And this temperature inversion includes the colder air under the warm air, and high pressure is also overhead. High pressure brings the three S's: sunshine, stability, and subsidence. Now, for most of Central Oregon, on top of this fog, we have tons of sunshine. But this fog is lifting up. It's bringing us a low deck of clouds. It's just been stubborn and hard to break apart through the last several days. And it's also bringing us subsidence, which is pretty much the opposite of what typically happens. Typically happens as temperatures warm up during the day, the atmosphere expands, but with high pressure pushing down on that, it's doing a couple of things. It is locking in this fog, almost like putting a lid on a jar, and it's just keeping it close to the surface. It's also keeping particulates, smoke particulates close to the surface, so we do have periods of poor air quality expected through the next couple of days. Now, add in this temperature inversion to the fog that's trapped closer to the surface with temperatures that are well below freezing already. Remember, it's just before 5 o'clock and we have 20s and 30s on the map. It is at freezing in Warm Springs. Now, at higher elevations, Sun River, Lapine, keep in mind, Sun River's, I'm looking just to my right real quick. Sun River's at 4,100 feet, Lapine's at 4,200 feet, even Lava Butte is at 4,500 feet. So pretty much that inversion is at 4,000 feet, give or take. And so anything above that, you're feeling much nicer. Anything below that, that's where we have that cold air trapped at the surface. And you add in these sub-freezing temperatures with fog that's settling back in, we're looking at another round of freezing fog. We can even see it in the Bend camera. Cannot see it at Lava Butte and Lapine. Remember, we were just talking about those elevations, and you can see the elevations on some of these cameras. But at Sisters, it's already 21 degrees. It's already 30 in Madras, and it's just pretty cold across Central Oregon. Now, once once this fog sets up, we're looking at another round of freezing fog. Meanwhile, getting up into the Cascades, not too shabby at all. Actually, there's actually been a little bit of snow melt up there as well. We'll talk about that in a few minutes also. But for weather alerts across the state, majority of Central Oregon, just under this air stagnation advisory and the air quality alert. On the other side of the Cascades, that's where we have a freezing fog advisory and a dense fog advisory. I would not be surprised if tonight another freezing fog advisory or dense fog advisory was issued for Central Oregon. But outside of that, this is what we're looking at: periods of reduced, quite possibly even poor air quality, and that's what we're seeing. Air quality conditions across Central Oregon include, well, what I'm showing you is that the base map is the DEQ, courtesy of airnow.gov, and it shows hourly average. All the other dots, those are real-time sensors. One of them, near Madras, is unhealthy for sensitive groups. Looking at a third network, air quality monitoring network, this one is Purple Air. A lot of us actually have these sensors at our house, and it's a little more sensitive, and it's showing moderate to unhealthy for sensitive groups for a good portion of Deschutes County, and red or unhealthy down towards Lapine. Now, in the last 24 hours, no new snow. We've actually lost a little bit in the Cascades, putting us between 19 inches at Hoodoo and 29 inches at Bachelor. That's losing just 1 inch of snow for the entire weekend. That's not too bad, but it is starting to get a little bare up there in some locations. So your paddle prognosis shows no new snow, and by tomorrow, that inversion sets back up. In higher elevations, we're going to be well into the 40s, and lower elevations, still pretty cold because of this fog that is not backing down anytime soon, really until our next system rolls into the region. So when we look at enhanced infrared satellite imagery, the blend with radar didn't show much other than what I'm showing you right now. We can still see that fog set up across Central Oregon. We can still see this broad ridge of high pressure that's anchored over the Pacific Northwest, and we can still see that it's going to remain in place as we go forward through the next couple of days with this very dry air. What we're looking at is mid-level water vapor. Okay, so this is way above the surface, and it's very dry overhead. At the surface, that's where we have this fog, and to be honest, you can't even really make out the fog on the water vapor satellite imagery because it's so close to the surface. That's why we've been using infrared satellite imagery for that. Now, your forecast model shows that more of this fog sets up overnight, becomes freezing fog. We are looking at periods of poor air quality as well. That lifts up and dissipates through the day Tuesday. We repeat it once again, Tuesday night going into Wednesday, and still no real precipitation in sight, nothing meaningful outside of some of those flurries around areas of fog, and we can really see that those clouds are descending already between 90 and 96% along the 126 corridor and even as far south as into Bend. This is where we're looking at that fog setting up once again, and look, temperatures did not go very far today. They are still pretty cold right now with 30s, some 20s, and a few 40s on the map. Many of us already below freezing, but we're also running between 2 degrees cooler and 16 degrees warmer than 24 hours ago. Tonight, back into the 20s with a few teens. Tomorrow, still pretty chilly, pretty cold across the high desert. So these foggy starts continue with PM clearing each day. So highs in the 30s and 40s Tuesday, 40s with some 30s mostly Wednesday, and then by Thursday into the 40s. Still pretty chilly, still under this ridge of high pressure. And so roller coaster temperatures are expected, but for the most part, below average except for Thursday and Saturday. And your forecast model doesn't show any meaningful precipitation outside of where we have this fog, some flurries, and even possibly some freezing drizzle that is going to be possible. And then getting through Wednesday and into Thursday, don't see too much in the way of fog there, but more PM clouds are expected. And by Friday, we're actually looking at still dry conditions, but a dip in temperatures. So between now and Thursday at 11 p.m., no meaningful rain in sight, but through Sunday, we are looking at some precipitation on the high desert. Meanwhile, winds at a light breeze, and it's staying that way. So let's go ahead and kick it forward to lows tonight. We're looking at 20s, more freezing fog expected. By tomorrow, temperatures topping out in the 30s with some 40s on the map. And here's your 7-day planner. This freezing fog is the majority of the headline with our forecast. Next chance of precipitation holds off until Sunday. That's the latest in weather.